All right, we're recording. Want to kick us off with the SIG Network bug triage?
Yes. So let me present to. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right. All right. Number one, unify round robin from user space and win user space. So anyone familiar with the Windows kubeproxy? Oh, the user space one is sort of deprecated, right?
I think it was Red Hat.
It's very deprecated.
Yeah.
I mean, this doesn't look like a bug. It's more of a code cleanup thing, right? It's just
Right.
common code.
So anyone want to take this up? And
I mean, is this basically an RFE though? Somebody's saying that this would be great to do, but we don't have a PR for this, right?
Yep.
I can take that if the resolution is just please send PR.
All right.
I think you could just triage it and yeah.
Okay, cool. Next one. So a merge should restore service port name originally in endpoints map. What is this referring to?
Unmerge.
A merge, is it talking about internal implementation of kubeproxy?
Yeah, that's correct. It does merge and unmerge, but is this, which proxy is this for? Is this for the IP tables, IPVS, etc., or is it for?
I think both of them use this.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
There's
so
another code improvement.
Right, it's like internal cleanup. Since this guy filed it, probably he knows it.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Exactly,
Exactly.
right, because
Can you link the
Go for it.
like, can you just use every
Code.
single
link the code here, or
last time we
PR
didn't
even
work
better.
out.
All right, so let's see if the guy responded, and then we'll come back next time. Kubeproxy does not exit after cleanup, so it's assigned to Valerie.
Yeah, I'm a tiny bit suspicious it could be related to a recent fix. I want to take a look soon.
I see. Okay, I will leave it to you. All right, next one. I think the flaking test, if resource is flaking, and so this is a 1.5, 115.
This is ingress, so maybe.
Is it ingress?
Yeah, it says right.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Probably right here.
Okay.
I would say okay. It's
Okay. Okay, let's assign to.
Yeah, you can give it to me. That's fine.
All right, cool. Thank you. Okay. All right. Next one. Build ports to endpoints map should use flatten value type. So again, it's like a cleanup, right?
Yeah, it's from the same guy. Tabby.
So yeah. Yeah.
Well, or solicit. Yeah, send a patch.
Okay. All right. Next one. We'll done support IPVS proximal true. So
Isn't it supported?
yeah, it should be just a flag, right? This is a support request, not a.
I imagine the person put support because it is supported and documented.
Okay, so it doesn't need triage.
Yeah, it looks like they just don't understand something.
Okay, so any IPVS team? Anyone from IPVS team here that can quickly unblock this guy? Or, well,
You can assign it to me. Andrew's like him.
all right. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, next one. Slow connection TCP transmits via no port. Okay, so which environment is?
Okay, this reminds me of another one that I started to look at. Maybe I should try to take this one.
Okay, thank you, Mike. All right, so please take a sap, and then we can revisit next time. Okay, next one, IPVS UDP to garbage collection, to garbage collect real servers. So I see, it's sort of, it's like a UDP black hole problem with the IPVS queue proxy. Anyone from IPVS team? Or we can assign someone from that team.
I think it's M1.
Yeah, M1, okay. All right, so let's see, you get a chance to take a look. How the services differ between user space and IP tables proxy mode. Have different behaviors. Oh, I see. So it expect ping? So I don't think ping will work.
I don't think they're actually using ping.
Oh,
They're just using the word.
upon. Micro Kubernetes.
Is this difference in behavior just that one is working and one isn't?
So the IPVS, the IP tables mode doesn't work. Right? Oh, a pin, I mean, works, but the user proxy is not working. So I think the user space proxy is sort of like semi-deprecated.
I don't understand. Why are proxies involved with a headless service?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it should not work, right?
I'd be astonished if anything happened with either implementation. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, let's ask.
Why don't you assign this one to me, and I can try to monitor it for responses.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I feel like neither of the proxies should be doing anything with the service unless it has a cluster IP or an external IP. So that's really curious.
Okay. All right, next one. The same namespace, the pod that kubectl can get, Fabric cannot get.
I think there's no information here.
Yeah, nothing here, just the title.
Am I missing something? What is Fabric?
Close that. Just close that. That's not enough information.
Okay.
Hey, Casey. On that last one, link to the Kube documentation on headless services, because there's a sentence that says Kube proxy does not handle headless services and there is no load balancing or proxying done by the platform for them.
Will do. Sounds pretty clear.
All right, next one. Ignore the core DNS failures.
Oh,
That seems more support thing here. It's not really core DNS, but the way to set up.
yeah, but how to set up the resolve comp on your host and the local DNS cache and some.
Chris started to.
I see.
This is a support request for sure.
Yeah, it's a support.
Yeah.
Okay. So take it off the list. All right, next one. Store parse type.
wait, a stupid question here. What does triage/support mean?
I thought it would mean support request.
Yes, the kind we use to indicate that something is a support request.
So yeah, what is?
So I thought we were closing support requests.
Ideally, yeah. Sometimes I think we try to be polite, but
Well, if we close it and say, I'm happy to continue discussing with you, but only on this closed issue instead of an open one.
How exactly do we define support requests? I asked because another one I've got might be that, so I want to know exactly whether it is or not.
if it's something where it seems to be they've done something wrong and not a bug or abnormal behavior, then it's probably support.
Well, usually these ones, where I've seen us close it, it looks like, I can't tell. I mean, the one I've got, I can't tell yet. There's not enough information.
So when you can't tell, then you probably have to keep it open because it could still be a bug until you figure it out.
Yeah, we should err on the side of finding out more information first.
But this
That was
one,
my inclination. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's continue. Store parsed CIDRs at initialization of proxies. So it looks like an internal cleanup again. Okay, so
I think there's a kind cleanup you can say /kind.
oh, it's already there. All right. So it doesn't need triage. Okay, all right. All right, UDP packets from same source port do not round robin in the Kubernetes service. So which proxy mode is this? It doesn't say. Packet tables? Oh. So I think this is a problem in general if we use IP tables and contract to do natting for UDP, because if the socket get reused, then it's gonna basically,
Okay.
yeah, the connection, the contract entry will never get expired, so that it will never get round robin to a different destination. So
Well, wait. First off, IP tables doesn't even try to round robin.
yeah,
It's
not right.
probabilistic.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's random, and then once it
Once
establishes,
it's picked one, it's picked it.
yeah, the picked one, it's picked it, right? So because the source matches the contract entry, then it should be. So let me
Right.
ask.
If it's all one flow, right, it's not supposed to get split up.
Right.
Work
Yeah.
as
So I
expected.
think
So
it works as designed.
work as expected. Okay, I'll assign to myself, and I'm gonna close it. I'm gonna close it.
Open new sockets and see what happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So pod doesn't have iNet 6 on interface. I think we. Oh, this is a new one.
Why is that a bug? Unless you don't support dual stack.
Yeah, working as it intended. Anyone from the IPv6 team? It looks like it's working as intended.
It says it's used to work before upgrading your counter.
There's a couple known issues, I think, with recent IP tables versions and networking.
I don't think that would play in here, though. There's also issues with Docker. For a while, depending on your Docker version, it did not enable IPv6 inside containers. You had to do something special for that.
Well, this is a pretty recent Docker.
Okay.
Well, I guess not so much anymore, but still, I mean,
right.
I don't know how recent is recent. You're thinking, Dan.
Also, what networking are they using? That would be something good to ask.
Yeah, sounds like we can't close it. So does somebody want to follow up on this?
Put me down, I guess.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next one. Add transparent corporate proxy support.
Definitely sounds like a feature rather than a bug.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a feature request.
That sounds like something the security team would hate.
This sounds like it's mixing levels. Looks like it's mixing level 7 and layer 7 and layer 4.
Yep.
Yeah, he's saying he wants to go through the proxy automatically, but then it's going to look like the Kubernetes cluster is using the proxy, and you're going to have no visibility into what application is doing it.
Yep.
Maybe just politely suggest that they file a cap, and it probably won't happen.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. Kubernetes liveness cannot visit service by DNS. So this,
that is a.
I think this is working as intended because it's the kubelet executing the liveness probe, and kubelet doesn't have the kubedns, right? It's using the whole.
No, but the point is, liveness probe is on a pod, not on a service, right?
Yes.
But yes, you're right. Yes. The liveness is on the pod. It's on the not on the service, and then it's executed on the kubelet. So kubelet will not have kubedns DNS.
Yeah.
It's working.
Right, but I think it doesn't make sense to have a liveness probe go to a service. I mean, the point of a liveness probe is to probe a pod.
It doesn't. I think that they're misunderstanding.
Okay.
It is more. They just
It's
don't
more.
understand how it's supposed to work.
Yep. Okay. Next one. Test loopback host port failed on non-IPv6 machine. Loopback.
Seems simple enough if you have a machine you can test it on.
So are they running a specific?
It's
the
running tests for API version. Test.
So
it's a test failure. But
it is a test fail in its Is this even SIG network?
I don't know what the test. It sounds like it's a test for a SIG network, host port. So it seems like it's for SIG network functionality. I don't know who wants it.
Yeah, anyone want to take a look? It looks like a valid problem. Anyone want to take up the IPv6 stuff? No? No one?
Oh, hey, that reminds me. We talked about so can everybody who's willing to take an issue, regardless of a specific issue, but who's willing to take an issue, put your name in the Zoom chat, and then we'll just assign them to people. If there's nobody who volunteers, you just get picked if you're willing to do that.
Yeah.
That way we don't end up with this nobody wants it thing.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna Figo. All right, thank you. All right, next one, kubeproxy hands-on API server errors.
I left a few comments on that. Looks like IP tables restore was erroring out. I know Tim Hawkin added a PR to add some logging, so recommended that they try with that patch.
Okay, all right. So let's come back next time. Kubelet bandwidth limiting not working. So any updates? Oh yeah, so it's not like working as intended because there's no.
I think we triaged this one to Dan last time.
Yeah, we did last week.
Okay.
Or at least we talked about it last time. What was the end? Oh, never mind. We're on a different one already. Never mind.
I don't know that we got to an end. I think we just assigned it to you.
Got it. Yeah, because I had commented on it anyway, so that's fine.
So this one, kubeproxy running in IPVS mode, causing Cilium. Oh, I think I asked the question last time. Okay, the guy still hasn't responded. Okay, next one, kubeproxy IPVS mode with the external IP resulting in disconnected workers.
Anybody from IPVS on the call?
Looks like still.
So Valerie bumped it 16 days ago and nobody's replied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's just ping it and see anyone from IPVS can pick this up. All right, next one. DNS resolution fail occasionally after upgrade to core DNS.
It's already assigned to Chris here, and I think nobody replied.
Yeah, nobody replied.
So didn't we say we were going to close these if nobody replied around the next time?
Yeah, this one's from early March, so maybe we just close it.
Okay. Okay, two more. Use code releases from container networking plugins repo for Windows clusters on PCE.
I think we did this one last time too.
Yep. And we've also talked about this in the CNI maintainers, and we're moving forward on this. So I think just leave this one open for a little bit, and it should be solved in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. All right, doesn't need to triage. Okay, cannot access service from within a pod. I think last
Dan,
time.
should that last one be assigned to you? If it's being done on the CNI side?
No, you can leave it as David if it's assigned to him, or Patrick, I guess. I don't know. Either that or assign David to it as well. D-A-SCH. D-A-S-C-H. He might not be an org member, though. Shoot. Okay. Yeah, just assign me.
All right.
Just want to make sure it's with somebody who's on it.
Cannot access service from within the pod. This looks familiar.
I think it's
Is it still live? Okay. So reopen. Okay. Okay, last one. kubeproxy IPVS updates are slow and seems to be affected by node. I think last time we double checked, we checked this. And Is there any fix, or did anyone try anything new?
I believe this is the issue where we took out some of the auto cleanup from kubeproxy. So there is a fix out by means of getting rid of that behavior.
I see. Okay, so it doesn't need triage. Okay, so we are on time. All right, let's proceed to the next.
Yeah, we have a few more things on the agenda, but I have a hunch we might end up with time at the end for a little bit more triage. So next is John to talk about external DNS.
Oh, yeah, I forgot I was going to talk about that. So, yeah, I don't know if you saw on the SIG Network mailing list, the external DNS team, which has been a Cube incubated project, needs to move out of Cube Incubator since it's not a thing anymore. And so they were asking if SIG Network would sponsor them for that, which in my opinion seems very reasonable. We go under Kubernetes SIGs, and just means it would become part of our domain to track that. I wanted to get people's opinion. Do you know what the project is, or should I explain it? It basically watches ingresses and I think load balancer services and reconfigures an external DNS service. There are some sort of concerns with it because, like, it talks to many different vendors' APIs, and the Kubernetes CI doesn't have access to all of those different vendors' equipment running. So there's a limited, not all of those providers can be part of the CI. And it also needs, right now the images are in Zalando's Docker hub, or Docker, what do they call it, Docker registry. So they're looking for GCR K8s if, official place to live too.
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, it sounds like a reasonable thing to do without knowing much more about the project. Like, presumably there's a set of criteria it needs to meet in order to graduate, either set by us or by someone else.
Well, I don't think it's graduating in any sense. Incubation's going away, so it needs a place to live. So it's just kind of, does it get to live under the Kubernetes organization or kubesig's organization? And if it does, then we have to decide that we're okay with that, because it means that if there are bugs with it, they're probably going to show up in our bug scrubs and that sort of thing. And so it's adding load to this team.
I mean, do we have people who know the project?
Well, I'm here on behalf of Raphael because it's like 11 p.m. or something where he is, and wasn't able to be here. But I don't think they're saying they're going to pull out of it and get uninvolved. So they would still be involved. I guess maybe what our take home here should be is we should decide if there's criteria they need to meet, commitment they need to make, or something to make it make sense for us. But definitely some involvement by them around for bug fixes would be one key criterion. Any other comments?
Do they need a cap for this, or no? It's just a.
No, it's another It's not. It's an already existing project.
So it's already okay.
And it's not changing the core Kubernetes. So basically the SIGs are pretty empowered. We can just decide.
Okay.
It's up to us, and we get to decide on how we decide. So I think we don't have a formal voting structure or anything. Usually Tim just says yes or no, right? So, and he's not here today. So maybe we just, if there's no objections, then we'll just clear it with him and move from there.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. It would be good to identify any things that we think we should do once it happens, like moving the Docker registry and whatever.
Right. Okay. Then I guess the action item would be I'll we can just note that there were no objections here, and I'll talk to Tim or put something on the mailing list, and he can respond to that. He's on vacation today and tomorrow, and I'm on vacation next week, so I think the mailing list is probably the right idea. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got KubeCon EU SIG presentations next. Is that you, Valerie?
Yeah, not a lot to say on the subject. We had a meeting the other week to kind of hash out some rough outlines of what we're going to do. I have a very V1 version of a intro presentation up, basically going through like the basic network stack and tracing like what the service components are and how to debug it a bit. I don't know who's taking on the deep dive stuff. Tim and Bowie both sounded like they might be doing something, but I don't want to vill and tell them while they're absent.
Yeah, unfortunately, both of them are on vacation today. So
I guess I'll check in a bit about that, and definitely some eyes on the intro would be helpful.
sure. Usually it's Tim. Usually Tim did this, right? Like did the deep dive last time. Last couple of years. Yeah. Okay. We can pass this on to him and see if he can confirm.
Cool. Thanks for putting that together, Valerie. Yeah, if anybody's interested, please go and do a review of those slides. And then last, we've just got endpoint slice proposal.
Yes, this is me again. This is Minhan speaking again. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yep. So we have been cooking up this proposal for quite a while, and then right now we wanted to share it to the community and start getting feedback. So the main goal, so there are multiple problems with the existing endpoints API. So it basically has a scalability limit bounded by the etcd, right? Etcd by default can only store up to 1 megabyte for a single object, but then if you have all the endpoints in one object, then eventually you're gonna run out of, basically hit that boundary. And then secondly, because we put all the endpoints in one object, it suffers from the n-square problem, where one endpoint change will result in distribution of all the endpoints to all the nodes. So when this is happening at scale, when there's many nodes and there are many endpoints, and then an rolling update happens, and then the aggregated bytes transmitted through the network is quite high. So so we wanted to propose a new API that can solve these kind of problems, the scalability problems, in order to support like tens of thousands of endpoints on a cluster of thousands of nodes, and leave some room for like foreseeable extensions. So that's the main API part. Is the main idea is to shard the big endpoints object into multiple objects. So each endpoint slice will contain like part of the endpoint, like only portion of the endpoints up to 100. So if you have more than 100 endpoints behind a service, it will get sharded among multiple endpoint slice objects.
By whom?
By the controller. So there will be a new controller, the endpoint slice controller, that basically implements this API and translate the pod and then service label selectors and then into multiple endpoint slice objects.
So this is the controller that produces endpoints analogous to the produces slices analogous to the controller that produces endpoints today.
So we in the section of this in the later section of the doc, we basically say the existing endpoint controller will keep running because there are always third-party consumers we don't know about who watches the endpoint object.
Right. Yes.
So it will be kept running, but like starting from beta, we will start throwing like warning events, and then eventually probably capping the number of endpoints in one endpoint object to some number, let's say 500 or even 100. And then if you have more endpoints, then use the new API instead.
Yeah, today I think if you get above that etcd size limit, it just breaks.
Yeah, it just breaks. It won't even persist into etcd, and then no kubeproxy will get updated ever for that service. So eventually that will get stale, and then the functionality will just break. So we went through multiple iterations of the proposal, and then this is what we end up with. And then the estimation is sort of then the question becomes how large should each shard, like how many endpoints should each shard has, right? Each slice, what's the optimized number? And then we determined that, like, okay, so there are estimations for why we think having 100 endpoints per slice is a good enough design to like meet our goal. So here's an estimation between the current endpoints object and the endpoint slice with 100 endpoints and endpoint slice with only one endpoint. So the sample case is 20,000 endpoints on a 5,000 node cluster, right? So on creation, both the endpoint slides, like the endpoint slides, the API will have a write amplification because it has to write like 200 endpoint slice object instead of one endpoint object. But the total amount of data you should be around roughly the same because they contain the same amount of endpoints in it. But after the service is created on any endpoint update, the data transmitted and the write QPS would be much better than the existing endpoints object. So there are estimations of, like, for instance, if we use the existing API and there's a single endpoint change behind the service, we will end up transmitting like 10 gigabits, around 10 gigabits of data, gigabytes of data. Yep. And then versus the new API is like 50 megabyte. And then if we consider rolling update, which means that every single endpoint gets updated and then recreated, so that it's even more like it's gonna transmit more than 200 terabyte of data if we keep using like today's API. So mostly the proposal is to address the scalability and performance issue come from original design of the API. And there are some caveats which we wanted to, there are also some other problems we want to address with the new API. One is that the port is no longer like required field, because if we require the port field, that means we have to basically honor the port remapping for the service, right? So what if one day we have service v2 that doesn't support, like optionally support port remapping, right? So that's one minor change. And the second change is that instead of having two lists of endpoints, one like ready list of endpoint and the other is unready list of endpoint, that basically translate to for each endpoint it can only have two states, either ready or non-ready. But in reality of the the pod lifecycle, there are more states than ready and not ready, like graceful termination and things like that. So it doesn't block, it basically blocks us from adding more states into the endpoint, into like basically each individual endpoint. So instead, we added a list of endpoint conditions associated with each endpoint. And initially, we only have one condition type, which is ready. Right? It can be either true or false. Basically, it inherits the current behavior to describe for like whether the endpoint is ready or not ready. So that's the main two changes. The differences between the existing API and the new endpoint slice API. So eventually, we would like to switch the internal consumers, especially kubeproxy, because it runs on every single node, to consume the endpoint slice API instead of the endpoints API, and keep the endpoint controller, the existing classic endpoint controller running to produce the endpoints object up to certain limit. So that's basically the proposal. So I know it's only a short amount of time, so please take a look at the proposal and get the feedbacks, and we can discuss in the SIG Network meeting, and then I will convert it to a cap. Yep. So any question?
I don't want to bite shed too much on naming, but have you considered like naming the API endpoint shard instead? Because you've been using both term slice and shard.
We used to name it like endpoint subset, but then we don't want to basically conflate the subsetting and slicing, like basically sharding. So that's why we end up with endpoint slice. But like, I don't have a strong opinion either. Like,
I mean, I like shard too, but shard implies that it's a partition.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No overlap.
Yeah, there's no overlap. That's true. That's true.
I guess it doesn't have to imply that, but usually. And in this case, I think there is. We talked at some point about the idea of there being overlap in some cases.
Yes. So I have also included another more advanced idea, basically dynamic subsetting. So the idea is to, like, instead of always sending all the endpoints to all the nodes, only send a subset of the endpoint to a group of nodes, so that this basically further reduces the overhead. But since our goal is only to implement like tens of thousands of endpoints, not like millions or tens of millions of endpoints, so we basically determined that this is too complex, and at this point it outweighs the gain, so we did not pursue it. But the API itself, the endpoint slice API itself, does not determine that there's no overlapping endpoint like in a slice. So potentially in the future, let's say we get to that scale, we can basically implement it without too much change.
Thanks.
Cool. Is there a link to this in the meeting notes?
Yes, I will also send out an email to the SIG Network so that everyone gets it.
Perfect. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Were there any other topics we wanted to talk about that weren't on the list, or should we do a few more bug triages? Sounds like triage time.
All right. All right. First one, stateful pod. Stateful set pod connects service low. Oh, it's already assigned to my expressor.
Yeah, that's the one I was asking about earlier. I guess I'm asking for clarification here.
I see. Okay, we can wait for another round, and then if still doesn't apply, then we can close it. Okay. Ready provision condition for V1 service. So I don't think this needs to be triage. This is a valid feature request. Okay. So unidirectional UDP traffic to a node port service is not handled properly. How is it not handled properly?
I do feel like we looked at this one too. What's the latest comment on it?
Is that the one we tossed to Jacob? Yeah, he's still looking into it. He hasn't had as much time as he'd like, but leave it with him.
Okay, all right. This one, it looks like it's already, I think it's a support request, but let's leave it there. So daemon set pods are being scheduled with duplicate IP. I think we also checked this one. And, oh, the guy cannot reproduce the issue?
Yeah, this is the one that I was talking.
So you can close it with this slash triage non-reproducible. Or you pick the label up there.
Not reproducible. Okay. Okay. All right. Error adding networks. Yeah, I remember this is also. Have you got time to look into it? I think it's support.
If we already signed.
I think it has a.
Yeah, it sounds like a support issue. Okay, I'll leave it to Dan. Are you still here? Okay, all right.
He had to leave.
So kubeproxy conflicts node name and host name. Oh, I think. Yeah, okay, all right. Oh, this one, I see. Ones that are assigned, okay. IPVS default sysctls and configurations. It looks like our IPVS expert is still looking at it. All right, next one. I want to use service in pod to connect external MySQL, but not use.
I don't know what that means.
It sounds like asking for a headless service.
In pod, I cannot.
Am I misremembering, or is there no cluster IP with a headless service?
There is no cluster IP with a headless service.
So that sounds like expected behavior.
So I think below, right, there's some people already, right, you can sign to me for it.
Okay.
I can follow up on this. As to some people already discussed it, but I can follow up there.
Okay, thank you. IP tables entry for kubedns service don't match endpoint IPs.
This is Azure.
Anyone from Azure?
Sounds like your proxy's not getting your
Yeah.
updates.
Yeah, it doesn't sound Azure specific though.
Okay.
I guess this one probably needs more investigation.
Yeah, I can try to reproduce it if we think that it's not that specific to.
It wouldn't be
I see.
specific to kubedns if it's,
Yeah.
it's going to be every
Yeah.
service is going to be stale.
Yeah. Yep.
It looks like several people hit the same problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you gonna take it? Or-
Yeah, I can take a look.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I remember there was another issue somewhere about kube-proxy crashing or like hanging for like a few minutes before it crashed or something like that. That could be related.
If you could find
But-
that one, maybe you can comment there.
But if the endpoint did not change, then the IP table rule should be there. And
Well, it seems like the endpoint, he's saying he deletes a pod, and then some of the nodes get the update, and some of them don't. So kube-proxy's dying or something.
or
Yeah, I can find the issue and then reference it back to that one.
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Let me. So unregistered net device. Oh, this one
This
is
one's so familiar.
this one is an Asian one.
Yeah.
You always come back, and I think
I think it used to be a mechanical issue. I just throw this under my name sometime at that time.
so some background. So we have seen this tons of time, and every time it's a different problem. And then the kernel always throw out the same error message. It just means that the kernel lose reference to one of the like VFs, and this can happen anywhere inside a kernel. So it's sort of a generic symptom for different causes. So sometimes upgrading to a different Linux kernel would just solve the problem.
This is the last one. I saw Yang Kong also commented it
Yeah.
months ago.
This one is already closed. Yeah, let's ping and see if there's any updates. Okay, two more. IPv6 only cluster E2E testing issues. It looks like folks are already on it.
Yeah, I should probably remove the unresolved label.
But Tim added it, but okay.
I think he just went through and added it to everything at one point. I've set up automation to bug people if there's assignees and the label sits on for too long, because people just forget.
Mm-hmm. Wow, cause kernel panic. IP table save and restore. So which kernel does?
You should upgrade that
So
kernel.
yeah, it should be a issue open against the kernel.
Ubuntu 16.04. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can come back next time if it's still there. We can close it.
Oh, we got one more volunteer on the chat.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Assign this one to me. I was looking at a similar one.
They
Okay.
also mentioned that after they're downgrading, they're fine.
Yeah.
Downgrading of Docker.
Docker.
Yeah, I was like, why?
All right, last one. Contract entries for SCTP are not flushed for deleted service endpoints. Yeah, we do not flush. And I think this is working as intended. Okay, we're on 3 o'clock.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. See you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.